Hello everyone, I'm Rahma Alia. I'm from Muhammadiyah Bogoraya University, majoring in English Education Department, sixth semester. So in this video, I will try to explain about Zakat. So let's watch it. The definition of zakat. Zakat literally means blessing, pure good, and increasing. Zakat also signifies the purification of oneself obtained after fulfilling the obligation of paying zakat. Therefore, the positions given for zakat will help purify the human soul from selfishness, stinginess, and love of wealth. In the terminology of fiqh, zakat is a certain amount of wealth taken from specific types of property and given to those who have the right to receive it under specified conditions. Next, some jurists define zakat as follows. First, according to Abi Suja, zakat is a certain name that is taken from certain assets and give it to certain groups. Second, according to Said Sabiq, zakat is the name of the right from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala that a person pays to the poor and is called zakat because there is hope for obtain blessings, cleanse the soul, and add some goodness. Third, according to Yusuf Kardawi, zakat is a certain amount of wealth that is obligatory for Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and must be given to those who are entitled to it. Fourth, according to Didin Hafiduddin, zakat is wealth that meets certain requirements and is distributed by its owner to those who are entitled to receive it. Fifth, according to law number 38 of 1999, zakat is wealth that must be set aside by a Muslim or an organization owned by Muslims in accordance with religious relations to be distributed to those who are entitled to receive it. The purposes of zakat include the following: first, to elevate the poor and help them escape hardship and suffering, and to protect society from the dangers of poverty and destitution. Second, to foster bonds of brotherhood, mutual cooperation, and mutual assistance in good deeds. Third, to eliminate stinginess, envy, and jealousy among those who possess wealth. Fourth, to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor in society. Next, various types of zakat. Zakat mal. Zakat mal or zakat on property has been required by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala since the beginning of Islam. Before the Prophet Muhammad SAW migrated to Medina, so it is not surprising that this zakat service has received attention in Islamic. In the beginning, zakat was obligatory without specifying the amount and type of wealth. The law only required that zakat be paid, and the amount was left to the awareness and willingness of each individual. This lasts until the second year of Hijrah. Zakat mal is a portion of a person's wealth or legal entity that must be paid to certain groups of people after being on it for a specific period and in a minimum amount. And Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says in Quran Al-Baqarah verse 267, which means you who have believed, spend from the good things which you have earned, and from that which we have produced for you from the earth, and do not select out of in the good to spend while you would not take it except with closed eyes. And now that Allah is free of need and praiseworthy. Types of assets that must be given zakat. First, three types of livestock: camels, cows, and goats. Second, two types of metal: gold and silver, not for jewelry. Third, two types of grains: corn or rice and wheat. Fourth, two types of fruit: dates and grapes. First, in this group, the scholars agree that the livestock that are obligatory to be given zakat include camels, cattle, goats, and similar animals. The scholars stipulate several conditions for the payment of zakat for livestock, although there are still differing opinions on the matter. For the second, gold and silver, but not for jewelry. Scholars of Islamic jurisprudence are of the opinion that gold and silver are obligatory to be zakat if they meet the nisab. According to their opinion, the nisab for gold is 20 miskal, while for silver it is 200 dirham. They also stipulate that a period of 1 year must apply. The obligatory zakat to be paid is 5% of the wealth owned. Conditions for assets that must be zakat. The conditions are as follows. Perfect ownership, although in reality all property belongs to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. The owner of the property is someone who has been given authority by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala over that property, even if the property is in the hands of someone else as a loan. It will be considered as full ownership if the borrower is able to return that property. Second, developing in a real manner, that an asset becomes a condition if it can develop in a real manner or in estimated calculations, namely through growth and increase due to reproduction or trade and investment. Third, until nisab. Nisab is the minimum amount of wealth that is owned as stipulated by Sharia. The minimum amount of wealth in the form of money that reaches the nisab is 20 dinars, which equals 85 grams of pure gold, and this gold becomes the benchmark for the application of nisab for other types of wealth. And fourth, exceeding basic needs wealth that becomes a developed asset that is fully owned is in excess of the basic needs of the family that is responsible for it. These needs include primary needs or minimum living needs, KHM, for instance, daily expenses, clothing, housing, health, education, and so on. Unless a year has passed, or al-hawl, this means that the ownership of the property has passed 1 year. This requirement only applies to livestock, savings, and trade. Meanwhile, agricultural products, fruits, and rikaz or found items do not have a hawl requirement. The functions and roles of zakat. The function of zakat is as an act of worship for those who pay zakat, fulfilling the needs of those who mustahik beneficiaries and building society. Zakat has several roles as follows: A. Capital for community development, social justice, social equilibrium, social security, social safety, social insurance, oasis or lakes. Islam is a religion of charity. Pillars of zakat. Intent must exist in the heart when giving zakat, even if it is not spoken verbally. Zakat giver or muzaki, a person who is obligated to give zakat, namely a Muslim who is of a legal age, sane, free, and possesses wealth that reaches the nisab and haul. Zakat receiver, mustahik, a person entitled to receive zakat, which includes 8 categories mentioned in the Quran: the poor, the needy, the collectors, new converts, those in bondage, debtors in the way of Allah, and travelers. Unless wealth subject to zakat. Wealth that must be given as zakat must meet certain conditions, such as having reached the nisab or a minimum amount and how 1 year of ownership for zakat on wealth, and must consist of basic food or zakat fitrah. Asnaf groups of zakat recipients. Fakir, a person who is extremely poor and has no assets at all, or whose assets do not reach the nisab minimum threshold. Miskin, a person who is poor and has assets but is insufficient to meet their basic needs. Amil, a person tasked with collecting, distributing, and managing zakat. Mualaf, a person who has recently converted to Islam or is inclined to convert and needs help to strengthen their faith. Riqab, a person who is bound by slavery or debt and needs help to free themselves. Garimin, a person who is in debt for public or urgent reasons or is unable to repay the debt. Fisabilillah, a person who fights in the path of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, such as mujahidin, preachers, scientists, students, and others. Ibn Sabil, a person who is on a long journey and has run out of provisions or is experiencing difficulties. A legal basis for zakat in Islam. All Quran verses about zakat. Zakat is a commandment that is mentioned repeatedly in the Quran. So some verses that contain the command for zakat include: take zakat from their wealth to cleanse and purify them, and pray for them. In your prayer grows peace of mind of them. Allah is all hearing, all knowing. Quran At-Taubah 9 verse 103. And perform prayer, pay zakat, and bow with those who bow. Quran Al-Baqarah 2 verse 43. The rationale for the obligation of zakat. Zakat was made obligatory in Medina in the month of Shawwal in the 2nd year of Hijrah. Its obligation came after the obligation of fasting during Ramadan and Zakat al-Fitr. However, zakat is not obligatory for the prophets. This last opinion is agreed upon by scholars because zakat is intended as a purification for sinners, while the prophets are free from such things. Moreover, they bear the trust of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Besides that, they do not possess wealth and they do not inherit. In the Quran, zakat is mentioned alongside the word prayer in 82 places. This indicates that both have a very close connection. Zakat is mandated in the Quran, the Sunnah, and consensus among scholars. And the last one, conclusion. Zakat is one of the pillars of Islam and plays a pivotal role in achieving social justice and community welfare. As an obligation for every capable Muslim, zakat not only purifies wealth and the soul but also serves as a means to help the poor, reduce economic inequality, and strengthen solidarity among people. With proper and targeted management, zakat can become an instrument for empowering communities and addressing various social issues. Therefore, awareness and obedience in fulfilling zakat obligations must be continuously instilled to achieve a more just and prosperous life. So that's all explanation about zakat from me. I do apologize for my mistake. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.